Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the plenary session 4. The session 4 is on industry, the sustainability imperative, and it is based on 2 SDGs, SDG 9 and SDG 12. 9 is on industry, innovation, and infrastructure, and 12 is on responsible consumption and production. On behalf of IILM, I welcome all the dignitaries on the stage for the panel discussion. It is indeed my proud privilege to introduce each one of them. Brigadier Rajiv Williams, Yuddha Seva Medal, has served Indian Army till 2005 and is presently Corporate Head CSR, Jindal Stainless Limited Group. With over 45 years of experience on issues related to women empowerment, human rights, and entrepreneurship development, he is also the recipient of Asia Pacific Leadership Award in 2012, Top 100 Most Impactful Global CSR Leader in 2016, and Top 25 CSR Leaders in India in 2017. I welcome you, sir. Our second panelist is Mr. Subodh Kumar. Mr. Kumar is an alumnus of IIT and MDI. Presently, he is an executive director at Indian Oil Corporation Limited, with over 35 years of experience in the field of petroleum marketing, alternative energy, and sustainable development. He holds board-level positions with NPCIL and IoT Biogas Private Limited. I welcome you, sir. Our third panelist is Mr. K.K. Upadhyay, an alumnus of IRMA and presently the Director CSR, Center for Social Review, FICCI. He has pioneered several projects, innovative models that still exist in the development sector today, which includes Mother Dairy Fruits and Vegetables Safal, an integrated rural water supply sanitation project for 1,000 villages and 10 towns in Rajasthan, Apni Yojana and Bastar Integrated Development Project. I welcome you, sir. Our next panelist is Mr. Praveen Kern, an ex-ISS alumnus and head group CSR Spark Minda Group. His expertise is in the field of community development and corporate social responsibility. He was chosen among the 25 CSR professionals of India by CSR Times, declared among the 50 most influential leaders in CSR by World CSR Congress, and his program for PWDs has also won a National CSR Award in 2019. I welcome you, sir. Mr. Joseph Davis, the fifth panelist, holds a lot of dear memories with us in IILM because he has been our student who made us proud in the year 2017 by being the gold medalist of the batch. And he's making us proud now also. And he's making us proud now also by leading the research and strategy wing at Consortia Advisory through research-oriented insights for actionable design making in CSR and sustainability. I welcome you, Joseph. This session intends to bring out the role of industry in promoting SDG 9 and 12 to move ahead. In fact, as per the EY report, these 2 SDGs are directly referred as the economic drivers, as they are directly related to economic growth, employment, sustainable industrialization, innovation, and sustainable production. This, in turn, also offers business advantages through expanding new markets, attracting talent, and reducing risk from operations. Let us now understand the practices in the industry at macro and micro level from our distinguished panelist. Now I hand over the session to the session chair, Brigadier Rajiv Williams, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Shikha Bharadwaj, Dr. Das, other faculty members here, members of our panelists, and our young students, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me and thank you for making me part of this very strong agenda of sustainability. I think it's time to move from talking to actually doing things. It's important for us to understand, then only can we really work towards attaining the sustainability agenda. We've had talks in Paris, almost 5 years down the line, it's 2015. And we're talking about the agenda to be completed by 2030, when we are saying that the temperature of the world should remain pegged at 1.5 degrees Celsius. How do we do it? There are so many challenges, and those challenges is what I think we need to discuss. Because if we talk about the fact that January 2020, this morning's newspaper, if you've read, it was the hottest month in the world for the last 130 years. It was very cold in Delhi. But when we talk about the world, here it was supposed to be the hottest. And that is making us wonder what we are doing as industry bodies, as industries, contributing towards this very important topic that you have selected, industry, the sustainability agenda. Very meaningful. But what do we mean by it? What are we talking about the fact when suddenly COVID 2019 has hit the world? Everybody is talking about the coronavirus. I'm sure it's to do with climate change. I'm sure it's to do with the heat and the cold. I'm sure it's to do with activities being done behind the scene by some countries. Because we have to understand that a small thing like this can impact the world, it's to do with sustainability. And sustainability, if we look at the definition, is something to do with, break that word into sustainable. You have to sustain yourselves for today, you have to sustain yourself for the generations to come. And if we go back 100 years, the top 100 companies in the world, how many have survived? Only 5. Only 5 have survived in the top 100 companies the world over. And I'm proud to say that Tata is one of them. IBM. Others have disintegrated, gone. Because we do not think about this aspect of sustainability and the development needs, which I think our Gen Next needs to really take recourse of. So how do we move forward? I mean, how do we do with the sustainability? Those 3 principles of sustainability are critical, and that's what we will be demonstrating and discussing today. When we talk about the first principle is of communities, of societies, of the economic aspects, the people. Corporate social responsibility, the first P, the triple bottom line, is the people. Everything is centered around the people. When you talk about the second P is what? Planet. That's the environment. Industry like ours, stainless steel or steel industry, power industry, guzzles water, pollutes the environment. If we do not adopt practices which will lead towards sustainability agenda, we are going to be messing around with activities which will make sure that a company does not survive, does not remain sustainable. And the third P is equally important. Milton Friedman talked about that the business of business houses to make money. Wow, good. You guys, some of you people, young men sitting over here, marketing professionals, some will be going to the HR and whatever. But if you don't understand the fact that if you don't invest, don't say spend, if you don't invest some profits that you have gained from your business with communities, with people, with environment, your businesses will not be sustainable. And that's why I think it's critical for us to understand the triple bottom line and the concept that we are going to be taking forward on this. So here, when we say that how do we address this issue? How do we address this issue is equally important. And in Jindal Steel, Jindal Stainless Limited, from where I come from, I will share very, very brief aspects. And of course, the fact that it's a large corporation, our responsibility becomes even more challenging and difficult. And just to give you some figures of consumption of various sources of water, of creating waste is huge, humongous. And some of our processes that we put into place in our plants has reduced this kind of an activity. Also challenged by the fact that India has been emphasizing on the fact that the international standards of reduction of carbon emissions has to be ensured. And that has resulted in the GHG emissions. Intensive industries, including the steel sector, will require embracing low emission technologies, subsequently to be prepared for a stronger climate change regulations. So one area of energy management, which of course I will be throwing the question open to the panel, is some of the steps that we have taken to make sure that we have been able to reduce our energy consumption by 15,199 megawatts. And that's a huge measure by adopting various processes. So I'm just saying that industries have to invest in technologies which are expensive for reduction of GHG emissions. Many of us don't do it, and that's why we're leading into problems. Water or waste I'll touch upon is, for the last financial year, there was 975,690 tons of waste. Now you have to convert that waste into something which is back into the industry. So you have to invest into technologies for that. Water is, again, there's a huge amount of water that is required to have 1 ton of stainless steel. It's almost 100 times of water. So much of water is required. Water from where? From the river, close by. Now, unless you do some processes to make sure that you have recharging facilities, water harvesting facilities, and other things, it becomes extremely important. And lastly, and most importantly, is water. When we talk about, which is the guzzler of water? The maximum guzzler of water. And I was very impressed with that young student who came to pick me up. I was asking him, and he straight away said, agriculture. I was very happy to hear that, because how many of us do know that fact, that agriculture, 67% of water is consumed. Am I right? Almost 70% of water is consumed by agriculture. Unless we improve the various agriculture practices, water will remain a big challenge. We've got engaged with nothing to do with steel production or power. That's our industry. But we've gone in a very big way on working with farmers. And it has had a tremendous impact. I've been able to speak in the United Nations also about this. And we've demonstrated how we're trying to do some activities around empowering the women farmers especially, and seeing how some of our practices are being. So that is the reason why I think sometimes we get a very good reflection, and the UN invites us for various projects in the UN General Assembly or in Geneva, spoken there also about certain issues. And now, of course, Oxford University has invited me to speak of that. So it's interesting, some of our practices. So I won't say very much about how we are going to be moving forward, but I am going to ask our panel. And first, I'm going to request Mr. Subodh Kumar, who, as you are aware, is an executive director with IOCL. And Subodh, could you kindly reflect upon the Energy for India is the tagline for IOCL. I saw that tagline of yours, Energy for India. And although oil remains a key in present development scenario, yet when we talk about sustainability, then environmental friendly and efficient alternatives are the only way forward. So what measures of companies like IOCL have taken towards SDG 7 agenda of affordable clean energy? Subodh.
Thank you, Brigadier Williams. When we talk about emission, we talk about global warming. So two companies, two verticals, they come out as a villain. One who consume coal for producing power, another who sell oil for running the vehicles. So we are one of those. I represent oil industry, and we are as India, as a country, we are the third largest emitter of carbon dioxide. Methane, I will not talk much, but carbon dioxide is one of the GHGs which is contributing towards the global warming. And after US and China, India is the absolute third largest emitter. Recently, some numbers were floated. But what we do, what we hide behind our population, and we say, see, our per capita emission is much, much lower, and it is 132nd in the hierarchy. Same is case with the China also. If they divide the total emission by their population, so their number will be beyond 100. Okay, so that is what we have done. The question is that what oil industry or Indian Oil is doing about getting it away from this thing. So one, we work with the government. We are a government company, Indian Oil Corporation, everybody knows that. So what we have done, that switching your economy, what we call it, economy has been dieselized. We call our country diesel-based economy. So why it is called? If you don't have the electricity, you run the DG set. You don't have any fuel, you use the diesel for several activities, right from the running the tractor or pump sets and vehicle, even SUVs and all. Many of you may not be knowing this, but diesel was heavily subsidized earlier. That's why you are finding that the petrol is expensive, diesel is cheaper. Now that gap has reduced. Have you noticed that? The gap has hardly now 6-7 rupees. So we are getting away from the dieselized economy. 1 kg of diesel burnt emits roughly around 3 kg of carbon dioxide. So that empirical formula we should remember if I'm using diesel or petrol also. So 3 kg of carbon dioxide will be emitted if I'm consuming 1 kg of diesel or petrol. So how to get away from that? So Government of India, what they have said is, let us switch over to the gas. Gas is what? Methane, CH4. Now CH4, methane, the molecule, if it is compressed, it is called CNG. If it is liquefied at minus 160 degrees centigrade, it is called LNG. If it is coming to your residence, to your cook stove, it is called PNG, piped natural gas. It is same molecule CH4. Now CH4, coming from the fossil fuel, Mother Earth took around millions of years to convert all those great dinosaurs and whatever the vegetation was those days into gas, methane, and then we are using that. Now there are great bacteria around us. What they do, you might have heard about the gobar gas plants. So these bacteria, what they do, they change the organic matter in matter of weeks into methane. So what Mother Earth did in millions of years, it is possible to do in matter of weeks now. So Government of India has announced a program called SATAT. The full form of that is Sustainable Alternative Towards Affordable Transportation. What we do there, we take the waste streams of our country. What could be the waste streams? The organic waste which is coming from your household, what the heaps of those we see around Delhi, the Gazipur Heights and Okhla Heights and all kind of heights we are having here. So the organic portion of that, every year you see and feel the crop burning of Punjab, Haryana and Western UP. So that biomass, the sewage treatment plants, slaughterhouse waste, sugar mill waste, pharmaceutical industry waste, anywhere where the COD or BOD is very, very high, this bacteria can convert that into methane. So, and what is the potential of that in India? There is roughly 110 million tons Now 110 million tons just is a number. How it compares with exact oil consumption in this country. So last year we consumed around 84 million tons of diesel, around 26 million tons of petrol, around 44 million tons of CNG. Means that. So let us come back to the petrol and diesel number. If you add these two numbers, 84 and 26, the magic number is 110 million tons. These are the kind of potential. 110 million tons is exactly the potential of the biogas in this country. So Government of India has announced this program called Satat, under which what we are doing, we are setting up, we are inviting the entrepreneurs to set up these plants. Each plant is costing somewhere around 20 crores to 50 crores and producing somewhere around 5 tons of the biogas per day to around 70 tons of the biogas per day. And if in the first phase, 5,000 such plants are being set up. It will be giving 15 million tons of CBG, what we call it, compressed biogas. Now, coming back, how is going to help me in reducing my emission and use of the fossil fuel? Because this is going to replace, this is a fuel which is going to replace what? It can replace CBG. If it is used in vehicles, it can replace petrol, diesel, both. If it is used as a cooking fuel, as you are already using as a pipe natural gas, it can replace the fossil CNG and LPG. And since it is coming from the renewable sources, the biomass, every year you produce, how the biomass is produced? It's very simple. You sow the seed, the plant grows, through the photosynthesis, it captures the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, the carbon dioxide goes into the plant, and then biomass is created, and same biomass you again convert it into CH4, and then you burn CH4, again CO2 is produced and goes back to atmosphere. It is like a water cycle.
Yeah, Subodh, so I think it's really nice that you are doing so much for the IOCL, and this agenda, of course, is related to sustainability. That's one of the major areas. But if I may just open up a little discussion, and Shamendra, in case, Mr. Dr. Upadhyay, if you can kindly share that in the industry association, since you've been associated with FICCI for many years, have other companies also been working towards sustainability agenda? What do you have to say at the macro level?
As you know, a chamber is we have members, corporates as our members, and also a lot of associations. So what happens, the spread becomes very big. It becomes almost 125,000 members. And as we moved from 2005 to 2015, from Millennium Development Goals to Sustainable Development Goals, there's a bigger role for the companies to play. And these companies, it's not a luxury now. They can't afford it anyway, as Rajiv also said, that a lot of companies, there are few companies left now which were there. We said from 100 to about 5. So sustainability becomes a most important agenda where you can't avoid it now. So as a chamber, we try to inculcate it into our members in two directions. One is working with the government. As you know, now we have a department in government also, which deals with sustainable development goals. And also is very much in light with the Niti Aayog. And as a chamber, we work with government to bring it into practically everything which government does. And the other hand, we try to work with the companies, bringing it into their main agenda, and also working towards supporting them through advocacy, through training, and through knowledge. As a chamber, we are very much into this, and we are talking about responsible business now. And luckily, it's very good that most of the companies, they are interested in this. Only the question comes when we go to the small and medium enterprises. That's where we have to work a lot, because their priorities are different. They are more into their profit, into their business, their survival. And as you know, as the economy is going down, we are talking about 5 billion economy with 2 crore jobs every year. These jobs become very difficult. So that's where the challenges
So,
are.
I mean, I agree with you when you talk about the MSME sector has been, of course, now been pretty much made aware, and especially after the act that came into being, the Companies Act 2013, in which it makes it mandatory for them. But what is your advice, I mean, on this, Joseph? Because you, as an advisory services, have been working a lot towards this field with the MSME sector, with the corporate world. And what is your take on such kind of a thing for building towards the sustainability agenda?
Yep. Thanks, Mr. Rajiv. So I'd just like to start by saying that I'm the fanboy of this group. I've looked up to all these people and I'm proud to be a part of this panel today. So talking about sustainability agendas, I've been lucky enough to work with corporations who are taking an effort and putting their foot forward in this direction of sustainability. So in understanding the gaps that these companies have maybe, or the corporate sector in general, there are three things that I noted that can be identified as gaps. One is the lack of corporate purpose. Corporate purpose is when a company has a direction of providing a service or create a product that solves a problem. So the purpose of corporate direction in sustainability is basically be a solution provider for the planet and the people rather than profiting out of problems created for the planet and the people. So that is one area. And I've seen certain corporates just doing CSR or sustainability initiatives for the sake of brand visibility. So that is one big problem. When we consult with clients who want to create CSR initiatives just for the sake of brand visibility. So that's when we advise them, think beyond that. You want to create a sustainable solution that a corporate will be remembered for, or they can take up a cause that they'll be responsible for in the coming years. Because we have entered the phase wherein SDGs are considered to have entered their last decade for the result, 2020 to 2030. The SDGs have to be completed by 2030 as per the UN's norms. So everyone has to step up, and the corporate has an indispensable role in this because starting from poverty, social inequalities, as well as the climate change, the corporates have a big role to play in change makers, in being change makers for all of these. So that is one area wherein you lack the corporate purpose. The next one is vested interests. Vested interests, just to give you an example, there was a study by an NGO in Bangalore saying that most of the CSR funds that were committed for sustainability projects in Karnataka were limited to the area around Bangalore. There were other cities around, other places which required more support. And all these corporates, to take some names, be it Wipro, who invested 560 crores of their CSR funds towards sustainability, invested it around Bangalore. Be it Infosys, who spent around 306 crores, spent it around Bangalore. Also HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics, they spent around 130 crores. They also spent it around Bangalore and nearby areas. So what it shows is basically they want to create a sustainability program which is around a localized geography. So that creates a lot of problems for other areas because sustainable development should be geography agnostic. So that's where it should go. So the third problem is an eroding trust from the stakeholders. So I'm not talking about the upstream stakeholders, be it producers, manufacturers, processors, everyone. The downstream stakeholders like communities, the consumers, all of them have a problem when it comes to trusting these corporates. So when you talk about Coke, for example, they are considered a foreign entity who is making sugar water. So my boss, Mr. Deepak Jolly, have always been telling me it's more than just that. It's an emotion that we have to connect with the people. So if we are using a resource, we should give it back to the society. So that's where a lot of innovative ideas that has come around these beverage makers, FMCG companies. So they have started to own up, especially in the last decade. Also, they've actually boosted their CSR commitments in terms of the direction of sustainability.
Well, Joseph, I mean, I'll stop here because you made three very critical points. You know, you've talked about brand equity, you've talked about the geography, and you've talked about the fact that there is the eroding trust with communities. I would, in my summing, would touch upon these things separately, but what do you feel, Praveen? I mean, is that the core? Is that something which really happens with the difference between manufacturing sector and service industries? Let's be quite clear about it. Yep. Tell me about Praveen. You've got the programs of Saksham, and you've got the programs of Akarshan. Maybe, it's around your plant locations, but it has a different purpose, not just branding, I'm sure. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much for the question. I'd like to respond to this question with the context setting of yours, where you talked about the triple bottom line, where you talked about people. So I'll be limiting myself to speak more about planet and the profit, how like people out of this triple bottom line becomes the significant intervention area for the corporate, and how does it ensure the overall sustainability. I'll take some of the case studies, and then I'd like to explain it to all of you. So if you look at CSR for a business, what Joseph is saying, that how the corporates are eyeing to it and strategizing about corporate social responsibility. एक समय था जब प्रॉफिट की बात करती थी कोई भी कंपनी, कहती थी कि हम तो जी मुनाफा कमाने आए हैं. वो समय बीता, उसके बाद फिलैंथ्रोपी की बात होने लगी. पीपल स्टार्टेड टॉकिंग अबाउट डूइंग चेक बुक चैरिटी, गिविंग अवे, डोनेटिंग थिंग्स एंड ऑल दैट. Then it took a shape of community affairs. The community becomes the integral part. They become the stakeholders of the business. Now in today's context, once we are talking about SDGs, 15 साल का एजेंडा है, यूनाइटेड नेशन ने हमारे सामने रखा है, और जब हम इसकी बात कर रहे हैं तो बिजनेस, कॉर्पोरेट सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, इन सबको सस्टेनेबिलिटी वाले एंगल से देखना पड़ेगा. सो सस्टेनेबल बिजनेस, दैट शुड बी द आइडियल स्ट्रैटेजी एंड अप्रोच. So it's about the realignment of all of them, what has happened so far. And talking about profit is not a bad idea. Even if you are from a CSR, if your CSR is able to maximize the profit for your business, it's not bad. To my understanding, it's not only about social profits, it's about the economic profits also. Therefore, the realignments are very much desired. There has to be a win-win model. And to respond to your question, sir, we have developed a program on skill development called Akarshan, where we train the community youth to become skilled, and once they become skilled, they are nearby our factories, which are in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Haryana. We can employ them as a potential manpower. So it ensures the sustainability of the business, and it also takes care of the first P out of the triple bottom line. If I take another program which is on disability that we take care of, the name of the program is Saksham, where we empower persons with disability. We give them skill set, we help them getting UDID, disability certificate, we help them getting skill, we are collaborated with sector council persons with disability, we are impaneled with CII for that purpose of ensuring their employment. We ourselves have employed 350 persons with disability within our company. We did an exercise where we try to identify that which type of disability fits in which type of function. And then accordingly they have been employed. And in fact, this is one of the best CSR innovative models, which has been also recognized by the President of India last year. So see, the idea is that we are getting something as a productive result from integration of persons with disability within our factories. We are not able to burden our organization that you have to, this is not a subject of sympathy or, getting very emotional about it. Let it be very, very practical. Let them be economically productive. Let them learn that what can they do, and they are able to deliver to the best of their potentials. They are working with zero defects within our organization. So, this is how you can actually address the sustainability agenda, where people should also be centered, and that is the main area where actually one could eye to. Okay, so I'll take one more small example, which is a project that we do in the prisons of India. जेल के अंदर जो इनमेट्स होते हैं, हम उनको मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की हमारी जो स्किल है वो सिखाते हैं. जेल के अंदर हम एक सेटअप बना देते हैं और कहते हैं कि आप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करिए. हमारे कस्टमर को वी सेल आउट दैट प्रोडक्ट, वी गेट द मनी फ्रॉम आउट ऑफ इट, और द अर्निंग that we get out of it, we give this earning to the inmates' family. Now look at the sustainability. The sustainability of the families of the inmates, because they are deprived, nobody is there to earn for them, they can sustain in the society. We are giving a skill set to the inmates. They would have a plan B for their lives once they are out of their prison, and we are able to create a crimeless society. So, the idea is to look at the strategy, which is actually supplementing even to the economic benefits for the business, and also cater to the society. Likewise, certain win-win models can be created. Once we talk about SDG, it's all about the sustenance of everything. So I have a lot to talk, but again, like, I don't know, I was told in the beginning of the session itself that I have to restrict my talks within a couple of minutes, so I'm stopping
No,
here.
thank you, Praveen. I mean, it's great actually to talk about this because you are expanding this discussion from CSR sustainability. You mentioned that, and it's linked also to something. It's not just branding piece. It's not just something around your plant locations, but it is to do with your responsible business. So, Upadhyay Sahab, can you just share something regarding the CSR, because that's what you're linking up, and some of your experiences toward the CSR agenda and the rural development scheme that you come up with in Safal and, on health and integrated sanitation activities. Can you just share that quickly?
Thanks, Rajiv. See, let me tell you something about, about Amul. That's what we have been trying to replicate in Safal. Amul has been a very successful model. If I say in bullet points, the first point is, as a business, all the identities are independent. They are not dependent on each other directly. They are dependent on each other indirectly. Like a village where we have producers, it's producers cooperative, which now we make as company now, because there's a company law also now. You can make farmer producer organizations, and it's a company act now. And then when we come to district level, these cooperatives, they form a type of a plant, which is more into processing actually, making milk products and others. Then they form a federation which is called Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation. This is an independent body which sells products as a Amul. Now they have increased over last 5 years from about 1200 crores to 25,000 crores. That's basically because they treated it as a total business. So I think when you see the chain, you find at the producer level is community, at the federation level is totally business, it's marketing practically. That's what first lesson is. Okay, it's totally independent of each other and they do different functions. They don't replicate each other's functions. Second thing is it's owned by the farmers. The ownership, the profit goes back to the producers in terms of the surplus generated by the. So it's not totally a profit thing. That's where when you talk about CSR, CSR gives good. It's good to do CSR now, as you know, a lot of companies. And when it comes to Safal, problem comes, it has a different set of stakeholders. Unlike milk, it's not one commodity, it's about 5,000 commodities. Second thing is you don't command market. In Safal in Delhi, we just have 2% of the market. So we don't command the price. Whereas milk, if Amul raises milk price by 2 rupees, everybody follow them. But that's not there in case of Safal because you just have it. So it's also market share. You must be dominant in the market to capture the market and dictate it.
When Dr. Kurian came up with this model so many years ago, I mean, he had these thoughts of how the community's ownership of the project is a success story, and that's why it's sustainable. Yes. I think Mother Dairy is sustainable. So CSR, there are many areas that you can talk about on the business, social enterprise, but IOCL has got tremendous CSR projects too. If you can share some of those, because it's important for them to understand that sustainability and CSR, there's a very strong linkage. Yes.
But in Indian Oil, what we did, that because the CSR is controlled by a budget and sustainability is controlled by the business. So what we have done, the two clear distinction there. So whatever the budget is there under CSR, we spend it on the 3 or 4 heads. One is the health, another is education, that is drinking water. These are the 3-4 heads what we are talking about. So, some examples I will give you. Indian Oil runs a nursing college in Digboy. And there are batches of nursing staff. And this is a girls only college. So they get employment, and this we are doing for almost 30 years now. So every year, one batch will pass out, And this is a 4-year course. So they get certificate from the various universities they are attached. And so that is one area where we are doing. We have recently started a program called Vidushi, again for the girl child. Now, what is that? You might have heard about the model of Super 30. So one center we run here in Noida, another in Bhubaneswar, where these around 40-50 girls are selected from the economically weaker section, and they are trained to, given the coaching and the study material, and all the expenses are taken care by the Indian Oil Corporation for their residence and all. This is all residential program. And then they appear for the JE, and they get selected for the IITs and all regional engineering colleges, or now they are called NITs. So these are the two programs I can tell about. Coming back to the biogas program, what we are talking about, there the farmer producer organization and all, so the linkage was that, what I've not covered there. Linkage is that lot of fallow land, we don't utilize our land fully for producing crops and all. So concept of going for the energy crop, that we are encouraging. So whatever the people will be growing the biomass, not for the grain, but only for the sake of the biomass. So even the failed crop is also good source of income for those people. And if they are growing the energy crops like switchgrass or napier grass or maybe bamboo, so those kind also can be taken. So this entire thing of environmental sustainability to poverty elevation, and all linkages are there, and where the business is there.
I'm sure. I mean, what you've said is absolutely true. But if we talk about social entrepreneurs coming up, don't you think these are the opportunities for social entrepreneurs to get engaged towards biomass engineering and making more sustainable fuels? And that's a business model.
Exactly. So what we do, we don't do that portion ourselves. What we say, whatever you produce, the biomass you produce, it will be bought by another entrepreneur who is setting up these plants for converting biomass into biogas, and from biogas onward we take care of that. Another byproduct of this system is organic manure. Now there is another chain which starts working on that. The organic manure goes for the organic fruits and vegetable and grain production. So another chain starts.
Excellent. So that is basically circular economy.
So that is exactly that.
So circular economy, I mean, Joseph, I'll go throw the question to you. So just share something on this, a very interesting thing that I'm unfurling, that from circular economy and upcycling, there are many interventions that are leading towards sustainability agenda. So Joseph, the floor is open.
Yes, so circular economy is a concept that is derived from the nature. So the living nature has this concept where what comes from the earth goes back to the earth, decomposition. But when it comes to human consumption, we've taken a linear approach. So when it comes to circular economy, the natural cycle is basically make, use, return. But then when it comes to a linear approach taken by humans, it's take, make, and dispose. You take a natural resource, then you make something out of it, and then once it's obsolete, you dispose it off. So how long would it go? So with this linear approach, we are actually taking an idea wherein resources are infinite. But that's not the case. We know that natural resources or non-renewable resources are finite. So we should start accepting that and considering that the economy should be circular. Wherein, okay, let's give you an example. You have a phone. In the previous session as well, someone talked about e-waste. So let's give you an example about a mobile phone. What is the current life cycle of a mobile phone? You purchase a mobile phone, you use it for some time, and when it goes obsolete, you throw it away or give it to OLX or in a refurbished store or whatever. So that is just one aspect of linear cycle. But then think of an idea wherein it's leased. So you don't own a phone, you lease a phone from a company. And then you use it for a particular amount of time. For example, you can put it in an agreement that I'll use the phone for 2 years and then return it back. the more stable or the most higher performing the phone is after the 2 years, the more money you get in return. So let's create that model. And what happens is basically you are treating, when you give it back to the mobile phone operator, or for example, say Samsung for that matter, they use those materials that are within the phone to actually recycle and recreate a new product using existing resources. So how does that help? That helps in actually understanding that you are recycling those products considering they are finite resources. So that with that cycle, it will actually reduce the amount of dependence that you have on natural resources, non-renewable resources, as well as raw materials that we procure as of such.
Thank you, Joseph. I mean, you've touched upon life cycle concept.
Just one example.
And yeah, before that, I think I just want to throw this open to Praveen. You know, because you've got lots of plastics and you've got interiors that you're making from the manufacturing of your auto components in the cars and in other vehicles. That's also to do with life cycle concept, and that's what he's talked about, circular economy. Throw some light on that.
I'd like to correlate two things, what Joseph has said and what Subodh sir was talking. So the circular economy, but before that, like Subodh sir was talking about corporate social responsibility and sustainability. So something that I just heard that CSR is controlled by budget. I would like to comment first on that, and then I would respond to
Certainly,
your question.
go ahead, yeah.
Am I allowed, sir, for that?
No,
You've
taken the right course.
Yeah. I have a little difference of opinion, first of all, to understand this overall concept. Sustainability is the bigger agenda. Corporate social responsibility is one of the way to do it, for sure. But again, to my understanding, this is not something which is budget driven. See, Government of India brought in an act in 2013, section 135 is there, which talks about that 2% thing. Look at this terminology called corporate social responsibility. What is the responsibility for a mother for a baby who is an infant to feed the baby? Just think that it's an act for the mother to feed the baby. I really find complicated and confused with this understanding of corporate social responsibility, first of all, where this has been bracketed with something called budget and compliance and all that. This is not a subject of compliance. Sustainability, on the other hand, if you look at the business, it has to be driven through the business, right? But at the same time, think about it. In an organization, आप सोचिए कि पेपर को प्रिंट करना है या नहीं करना है, ऐसा कोई कानून तो नहीं बना. आप पेपर को प्रिंट कर लीजिए, कोई आपको रोकेगा नहीं. लेकिन यदि कानून बना दिया जाएगा तो आप प्रिंट नहीं करेंगे. अभी यदि सस्टेनेबिलिटी की हम बात करते हैं, पेपर को प्रिंट करना छोड़ देते हैं और उसको उस प्रिंटिंग प्रोसेस को इलेक्ट्रॉनिकली कन्वर्ट कर देते हैं. सो देयर इज़ नथिंग रॉन्ग इन इट, बट यू चूज टू डू दैट. You don't have an compliance behind this. You have the choice to pick that. So these all concept of sustainability, corporate social responsibility, these all are value-driven concept. It's a thought process for the planet, for the people, and of course, it is going to impact to the profit as well. Okay, so that's my take on the discussion, the deliberations that we had.
And that point now about plastics and interiors.
So, कई बार ऐसा सुनने को मिलता है. आपने शुरुआत की सर, आपने कहा कि we are polluting the environment, we are exploiting resources. It's a fact. There are lot of discussions कि pollution हो रहा है, आप community को गंदा कर रहे हैं, pollutants लोगों की बीमारियां हो रही हैं इस वजह से. So what do the business do? Think about the business, the other side of the entrepreneur who is running the business. He has his intent to earn the profit out of utilizing these resources. Can he stop his business? He cannot actually. The pollution has to take place. So what is the way out? How to cater to that? हमें कोई कहे कि आपने कहा सर प्लास्टिक के प्रोडक्ट, अब कस्टमर की ज़रूरत है कि प्लास्टिक पे ही उनको वो प्रोडक्ट चाहिए, इंटीरियर चाहिए, तो हम उसको कन्वर्ट करके गए कि नहीं जी प्लास्टिक तो बहुत पॉल्यूटिंग एलिमेंट है तो हम आपको प्लास्टिक नहीं देते. दैट इज़ नॉट पॉसिबल. What is possible is to maybe, there could be a preventive solution, there could be a curative solution. So, see, we have got certain drives within our organization that we take up. We have programs on tree plantation. We have done 15,000 plantation, and not only plantation, but also the take care of those plants. We have done 3R, that is reduce, recycle and reuse. The plastic that we use, out of it, whatever is the waste, which is the waste management process altogether, we have done 3,522 tons of 3R practices in last 5 years, which we have captured statistically. We are into renewable energy. We are trying to convert our plants to be solar operated. We have our targets for the next 5 years, that how many of our plants are going to be solar operated. We are trying to develop that vision. We have programs on water harvesting. So, just look at the third piece here, where we are talking about the profit. Today, the water level right here in our factory is somewhere like 500 feet. If you are not going to save water, it will go to 1,000 feet. कल को पूरा पानी खत्म हो जाएगा, बिजनेस बंद हो जाएगा, इन्वेस्टर नहीं आएगा, बैंकर नहीं आएगा, बिजनेस खत्म हो जाएगा, जो तीसरा पी है वो भी खत्म हो जाएगा. So the idea is that, see, you have to sustain water. So how do you do it? Water harvesting practices are there, roof water harvesting, groundwater harvesting, and we are doing it. We have done 7.23 lakh kiloliter of water. Sorry, yeah, sure.
Because of our time constraints, but I think all corporations, as Dr. Upadhyay also mentioned, number of companies have got engaged in such kind of practices. But to conclude this session, which has been, I think, very interesting and very interactive, I think I'll ask our panelists to give a 1 minute, I'll give you each, to give your top point that you want to share. Starting with Joseph. Yes. Just sum it up.
Yep. So I just want to sum up by saying that there are some recommendations that I'd like to give when it comes to making business purposeful and having a corporate purpose. One is having a better regulatory oversight. Right now, the government has started naming and shaming organizations that don't spend on CSR. But that's not the way to do it. You have to motivate them. Just like we had carbon credits, let's give them sustainability credits. So that is one way of doing it. And then there should be a transition from shareholder interest preservation to stakeholder interest preservation. So community should be involved. Consumers should be involved. So they should have that trust, and the erosion should stop. It should come back. And there should be a sustainability strategy. Businesses can adopt a strategy around sustainability. To give you a small example, we have a client, SY, International Spirits and Wines Association. So they run a campaign on staying not out. Basically, drinking responsibly. Why? The consumer has to drink less so that they'll stay healthy and they'll also consume over a longer time. So there is a business strategy involved, but at the same time, it's a health initiative. So
Great.
that is associated
So 3
with
you've given, and I said we'll give 1. So Praveen, your chance now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when Dr. Shikha started the session, she talked about SDG 9 and 12, on which this entire session is devoted on. I would add another SDG here, which is SDG 17, Partnership for Goals. A lot of people are doing a lot of good things, but these are all in isolation. There's a civil society, there's a community, there's a business, there are good people, there's sarpanch. So the idea is to have a collective action. The collective action is missing. There are good practices which can be replicated and the differences can be brought in. That is all I want to say.
Thank you. So good people. Yes, everybody is good, I'm sure. Yes.
The sustainability, when you talk about CSR, CSR becomes a part of sustainability because we're talking about not only how you spend the 2% you have earned as per the new law now. We also talk about the 98%, how you have earned it. That's where the sustainability agenda becomes very important. So it's not just talking about profit, it's also talking about how you earn your profit and how you spend it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And finally, of course, I'll request Dr. Subodh. Yes.
In my view, the businesses should now migrate towards the sustainability. And one point that I will just cover here. See, what we are doing, that we are a fossil fuel business, but what we are trying to do, we are coming into the circular economy. So one example I told you about the waste management and all. Plastic was not discussed, so I will tell you on the plastic. So I will take only 1 minute, sir. So 14 million ton is the plastic consumption of your country. Out of that, 4 million ton is recycled in a grey market. So 10 million ton goes to the landfills, or it is still lying in your backyard, or maybe in your storerooms. So, but that can be recycled. So what we are talking about, not recycling, we are talking about upcycling. We have come out with a technology where we will be setting up the plants. Again, not Indian Oil will be setting up the plants, the entrepreneurs will be setting up the plants, We will provide them the technology. We will buy the recycled product from them. And then the likes of the Procter & Gamble and Hindustan Levers and all, and in their shampoo bottles and all these things, now, it will go in the non-edible kind of crate. And there, what they will be doing, they will be proudly writing, this shampoo bottle contains 25% of the recycled plastic. So that kind of agenda we are working on. It is yet to be commissioned, but another 6 months, first plant will be commissioned on this.
Great. Thank you very much. But I'd like to just tell you one thing. What is the plastic waste per annum? It's 16 million tons. And you know how much is a single-use plastic? 8 million tons. 50% of the plastics is single-use plastic, which I think from 1st of October is banned. So that's a huge quantity of plastics that we have to take care of. And how and where is you and me are equally responsible to make sure that we reduce the single-use plastic. Well, to conclude the session, before I throw it open to the audience, I'd like to just give a few highs of our discussion that we've had today. Very interesting. I mean, Mr. Subodh Kumar talked about the fact that we all know that per capita consumption is lowest here in India. One of the countries lowest, China also. But because of our population. But that does not subscribe to the fact that we do not start working towards climate change. And the Paris Accord, right from the Kyoto Protocol actually, there has been talk about this. And we can't shy away our responsibilities. And I think there is a very strong intent of meeting this agenda by 2030. Diesel and alternative sources he talked about. Diesel is cheaper here by a couple of rupees. Earlier the gap was much more between petrol and diesel. But abroad when you go, diesel and petrol is costing approximately the same. In fact, diesel is costlier. I mean, I've seen in different parts of the world, that is a phenomenon that is taking place. And the third thing is biogas. Biogas plants are and have to be encouraged, right at the community levels to the stakeholders. There are many, and try and resolve this issue. And Dr. Upadhyay, of course, you mentioned about 125,000 members of one industry association. Similarly, there is FICCI, there is ASSOCHAM, and there is CII, and there's PhD Chambers of Commerce, Calcutta Chambers of Commerce, and all the others. If everybody puts in their little bit, I think we all can start moving towards the sustainability agenda. And Joseph, I'm very grateful to you for sharing the gaps. Those 3 gaps are very important for the lack of corporate purpose. But let me tell you that you talked about CSR and branding is true with some corporates, but not with all. And also the fact that the intent of the manufacturing sector and the extractive industry vis-a-vis a service industry, there is a difference. The manufacturing industry has to invest towards their plants, around the supply chains, where the service industry has that liberty of going wherever they feel like within the country or abroad. And vested interests and eroding trust. I think trust is most important. Unless you have trust with your consumers, with your customers, they won't buy your product. Unless you have good practices, sustainable practices, as Mr. Subodh also mentioned, our methodologies have to improve in manufacturing a product. The trust has to be built in. And Praveen, you made this very important thing about SDG 17, which sometimes we just brush it under the carpet. It is an era of collaborations. We can only start working towards sustainability agenda if we can collaborate and have good partnerships. So with that, I will conclude what we had to really, as a panel, talk about. But we throw it open to you for, I think, time for just 2 questions. If it's all right, Dr. Shikha? Great. So 2 questions, and the house is all yours. Please give your name. Maybe you, as a student, can give us to what you're doing, which is the area of your specialization. And then we will try and respond. together. We'll take 2 questions. Yes, please.
Good afternoon.
No, I'll request that lady first. The lady wanted to, yep, give her the mic, please. The student here, 3rd floor, yep.
Thank you, sir. Sir, as you said, investment is necessary. So my question is this, that practices which are holding are polluting our seas and harming our ecosystem. So it is a really good idea to invest in new product and new practices, and how it's formally and informally improve our sustainable performance.
Thank you. Your name, please.
So my name is Sanjana Yadav and I'm from GL Bajaj.
Sanjana, right?
Yes.
From JL Bajaj.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you, Sanjana. Yes, sir. Let's have your question now.
Good afternoon. I'm Pankaj Raval from IILM Lodi Road. We discussed about 3 R's. We discussed about efficiencies. We discussed about improvements in the processes. We discussed about maybe in the product level innovations in the last session also that we are having. And like we discussed about Samsung washing machines using lesser amount of waters. But now the challenge is big. The challenge is very big. So we need bigger innovations in this area. So what the panel has to say about bigger innovations coming up through the industry to take up this challenge.
Excellent. So we have these 2 questions. Let me finish off with that. First, Sanjana, you talked about the polluting industries. Why are we doing that kind of an activity? And who would like to take that on? Can I request maybe you, sir? Since you are actually working lots towards the plastics and others, but there is an opportunity for an entrepreneur also to develop. So why not?
See, polluting industry, should they be banned? But then there will be question of unemployment. I mean, whatever the industries are there, they are giving you some employment opportunities are there. So that is there. Only thing is that these industry has to be controlled. Now, when we go and control them, they try to find some via media for that. I can tell you about the fuel part of it. I tell you. N number of fuels are used for running the industry. Right from the press mud coming out of the sugar mill, which may have some sulfur content. So that is also burned. The RDF coming, which has a lot of plastic, it also burnt and all those things. So some educated and conscious decisions are to be made and taken. I will give you one example. One funny thing has happened over a period of time. See, in our zeal of handling the municipal solid waste, so what they did, somebody suggested, let us make compost out of it in place of making biogas and all. They started making compost. Now, what happens in that compost, it is called city compost. It has a lot of heavy metals, fine particles of glass, cadmium, and lead, mercury coming out of these thermometers, and some hospital waste also. Now, it is going to our soil. And unfortunately, it is being promoted as a city compost. I mean, the government is subsidizing is by 1 rupee 50 paisa per kg. But it will come back to us as under the food chain.
Great, so thank you.
So things are to be done on that area.
And it's an opportunity. Everything is an opportunity for an entrepreneur to find ways and means of resolving this issue. The second question, which from IIM, Ms. Pankaj, yes, you talked about, is about the triple R and how we can convert that. So anybody would like to answer that? Joseph? Yes, you go ahead. And then after that, Praveen. Yeah, quickly, very quickly.
Yeah. So I'd like to, you mentioned about the big changes that needs to be taken at this point. So I'll just give you an example about fruit circular economy that I'm working on right now with Coca-Cola. So what they're doing is agriculture is a big problem. Farmer distress is a big problem in this country, and 50% of the economy is based on agriculture. So can you imagine that out of 97 million metric tons of fruits produced in this country, only 2% is processed? Because the value chain that exists right now is vicious for the farmers, because the cost because of antiquated technologies in the farming process is obsolete right now. So there is a cost factor involved. The cost of producing fruits in this country is very high. So when it grows as it moves forward in the value chain, the cost increases. And brand owners like Coca-Cola has to import fruits which is more sustainable for them from Brazil. Even after paying the logistic costs and import duties, fruits imported from Brazil is costing lesser, the landing cost is lesser than fruits produced within the country itself. So that's what they are trying to change with fruit circular economy by introducing technological interventions like ultra-high density plantations, precision farming. All of this would help the farmer, and you're giving a trust to the farmer that we will procure your produce.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Praveen, can you just wrap up
Sure.
a little bit more on this?
Talking on your question, bigger innovation through industry. So whether that is bigger or that is smaller, everything matters. If you look at a couple of interventions in automobile sector, which is likely to happen, electric vehicle is likely to come into 2025. I don't know, possibly. I mean, that's a big vision to be done, but that's a bigger dream of the industry of the country. Renewable energy is another one. BS4 to BS6 is third one. I just take these three references right here. Now, from conversion from BS4 to BS6, it has impacted automobile sector in totality. There is an impact on economy, GDP, everything. We'll have to look at that part also. If you're going to convert everything into electric vehicle, the entire manufacturing process has to change, which requires capital investment, for which, again, the economy, the sector in totality is going to shaken up. Okay, I'm not saying it's not possible, but there are not only big things which can be done, there could be small things as small as when we leave this conference hall, these all lights should be switched off. That is also important. As small as we can save papers, we can save water, and small initiatives can also make differences. I'm sure a lot of organizations, a lot of industries are working in finding out the green manufacturing processes, which saves their money also, but it requires investment and it will take time.
Sure.
All from my end.
Absolutely, and I think it's a lovely note to conclude this session, because it's all something. Or one more question I can take on? Right, okay.
Yeah, basically two questions.
The central and the state government should have a shared vision for a sustainable growth through common policies. For example, the alternate wind energy source, the alternate energy in the form of wind energy, the government is promoting and the social entrepreneurs are also investing heavily on that. But what happens is that the state government is not giving permission to connect the state grid to the source of energy that has been generated. So on one hand there is power supply, which is available, and on the other hand there is also demand, but interim policies of the state government and the central government is not getting synchronized. So the efforts does not give the...
Right. So it's not a question, it's a comment actually. It's something like your SGST and your IGST. So there is a thing of centre and state. Centre-state relations are, of course, been a bit of a challenge, and I think there are many areas that we can keep discussing. But with that, and I can see other hands also coming up, and I would request that offline, during the lunch break or post-lunch, some of us can have a conversation. Thank you for patient hearing. Thank you for a panel which you've been able to share. Thank you, Foreman.
Thank you, everyone. I would now request Professor Shikha to felicitate the dignitaries on the stage. Brigadier Williams. Dr. Subodh Kumar. Mr. Upadhyay. Mr. Praveen Kern. Mr. Joseph Davis. With this, we conclude our 4 plenaries. Thank you.